Prometheus explained, the god who cursed humanity with consciousness. We are told the story of Prometheus, the benevolent titan who defied the gods, stole fire from heaven, and gifted it to the shivering, helpless race of mortals. He is celebrated as our champion, the bringer of light, the father of civilization, the one who suffered eternally for his love of mankind. This is the heroic narrative we have cherished for centuries. A simple, noble story of rebellion and salvation. But what if the fire was not a literal flame? What if it was something far more potent, far more dangerous? What if the true fire he stole was the spark of self-awareness, the unquenchable flame of consciousness itself? And what if the gods kept this fire from us not out of selfishness, but out of a profound and terrible mercy? Today we journey back to the dawn of man, to a time of quiet, animal innocence. We will uncover a story not of a gift, but of a theft that infected our very souls. This is the tale of how humanity was cursed with the burden of knowing, the torment of ambition, and the eternal, gnawing hunger for a meaning that was never ours to seek. This is the story of Prometheus, not as our savior, but as the one who, in his infinite pity, damned us all. Welcome to Mythos Unveiled. Today we seek to explain the tragedy of Prometheus, not as the hero who gave us fire, but as the god who cursed us with a mind that could burn down the world. In the beginning, after the great cosmic wars had settled and the reign of the Olympians was new and uncertain, the world was a quiet place. The earth was green and wild, a vast, untroubled garden teeming with life, untouched by the scars of ambition or the shadow of regret. And upon this earth walked the first humans. But they were not as we know them today. The ancient stories say they were shaped by the careful hands of the Titan, Prometheus, and his slow-witted but gentle brother, Epimetheus, from simple clay and water. They were given form, given life, but they were not given a mind in the way we understand it. They were little more than beautiful, graceful animals, living in a state of perfect, thoughtless innocence. They felt no ambition, for they had no concept of a future beyond the next sunrise. They felt no regret, for they had no memory of a past beyond the last meal. They lived entirely in the present moment, driven by the simple, pure instincts of survival, to eat when hungry, to sleep when tired, to seek shelter from the rain. They did not know they were naked, for they felt no shame. They did not fear the finality of death, for they did not truly comprehend that they were alive. They were at peace, a blissful, ignorant peace, living and dying as the seasons turned, no different in their spiritual landscape from the deer in the forest or the fish in the stream. Their existence was a long, unbroken, and silent dream. The gods on high Olympus, led by the new and wary king, Zeus, looked down upon them with a distant paternal affection. They were Zeus's creation, his flock, and he kept them as such, simple, content, and harmless. They were not to be elevated. They were to be protected from the very burdens that plagued the divine, the burdens of complex thought, of crippling self-awareness, of eternal memory, and of the corrosive desire for power. But Prometheus could not share this detached, pragmatic view. He was a titan of a different sort. His very name meant forethought. He was the thinker, the planner, the one who saw potential where others saw only what was. He would walk among the early humans, watching them huddle in caves, shivering in the cold, their beautiful, vacant eyes looking at him without curiosity, without recognition. And his heart, a heart far too empathetic for his own good, a heart that bled for potential unrealized, ached with a profound and dangerous pity. He saw not contentment but limitation. He saw not peace but stagnation. He saw beings shaped in the divine image, yet living the lives of beasts. Epimetheus, his brother, whose name meant afterthought, was content. He saw only what was there and found it good and simple. But Prometheus saw what could be, and this vision would become his obsession, his crusade, and his damnation. He believed humanity was incomplete, a masterpiece left unfinished. They had the form, they had the latent potential for greatness, but they lacked the one essential, divine ingredient that separated gods from animals. The inner fire, the spark, the logos, the curse of consciousness. On the highest peak of Mount Olympus, in the great, roaring forge of the smith god Hephaestus, burned a fire unlike any other in the cosmos. It was not the simple, mortal fire of burning wood that gives warmth and cooks food. This was the primordial fire, a fragment of the sun, a piece of creation's first explosive thinking moment. It was the source of all divine power, the engine of godly thought, the very light of divine consciousness. This fire gave the gods their immortality, their power to reason, to create art and music, to feel ambition, jealousy, love, and hate on a cosmic scale. It was the fire of the soul, the very essence of what it meant to be a god. And Zeus, the king of all, the god who had seen firsthand the destructive power of divine ambition during the Titanomachy, had decreed that this fire was absolutely forbidden to mortals. The traditional story, the one we tell our children, paints this as an act of selfish tyranny. Zeus, the cruel and hoarding king, keeping the power and comfort of fire for himself, leaving his new creation, mankind, to shiver in the dark. But what if it was not tyranny? What if it was a profound, if condescending, act of quarantine? Zeus had seen what this fire did. He had lived through a war born from the unchecked ambition, the paranoia, and the existential dread that this very consciousness fueled in the Titans. He knew that the fire of the mind was not just a tool for creation. It was a weapon of unparalleled destruction. It brought with it not just light, but the long, dark, and inescapable shadows of ego, of greed, of the desire to conquer, to own, to be more than what one is. It brought the knowledge of one's own mortality, a knowledge that could drive a being to madness. He looked down upon the race of men, in their blissful animal ignorance, and he saw a fragile piece that he wished to preserve above all else. To give them the divine fire of consciousness would be like giving a child a lit torch in a house made of dry reeds and oil-soaked parchment. It would not be a gift. It would be an act of utter annihilation. He kept the fire from them not out of spite, but out of a profound, if paternalistic, love. He was protecting them from themselves. The Olympian Mandate, a text supposedly outlining Zeus's early decrees to the other gods, contains a chilling and poignant passage. Let them remain in their quiet garden of unknowing, for the fruit of knowledge is a bitter thing, and its taste is the taste of ash and regret. To know is to suffer. Let them be spared from this. But Prometheus, in his profound and hubristic pity, saw this protection as imprisonment. He saw Zeus's wisdom as a cruel limitation on a species he had helped create. He believed he knew better. He saw humanity's potential for art, for science, for philosophy, for love, for worship. He did not, or perhaps refused to, see the darkness that would inevitably and inextricably come with it. He pleaded with Zeus in the great halls of Olympus. "Let me give them the spark, All-Father," he begged. "Let them be more than what they are. Let them build. Let them reason. Let them praise you with minds that can truly understand your greatness." But Zeus was resolute, his eyes holding the weariness of a king who had seen too much. "You see only the beginning of the path, son of Iapetus." The sky god rumbled, his voice like distant thunder. "I have seen its end. The fire you wish to give them will not warm them. It will consume them from within. It is forbidden." Prometheus left the presence of Zeus, his heart filled not with obedience, but with a defiant, rebellious resolve. He believed Zeus was a tyrant, afraid of a creation that might one day rival him. He believed he was a savior, a liberator. He would defy the king of the gods. He would commit the ultimate theft. He would bring the fire down from the mountain, and he would change the world forever. Prometheus, the master of forethought and cunning, devised a plan. He knew he could not simply take a burning brand from Hephaestus's forge. The theft had to be subtle, a trick that would go unnoticed until it was far too late to reverse. He found a giant stalk of fennel. The plant has a dry, flammable exterior, but its pith is moist and burns incredibly slowly, capable of holding a single, hidden spark for a long time without creating a large, noticeable flame. It was the perfect vessel for his cosmic crime. He ascended Mount Olympus once more, walking through the golden halls with a feigned casualness, greeting the other gods with a charming smile. He made his way to the great, roaring forge of Hephaestus, where the lame smith god was hammering out new thunderbolts for Zeus. The air was thick with the scent of ozone and divine metal, the sound a deafening, rhythmic chorus of creation. He approached the great central fire, the source of all divine power and thought. And he did not steal a burning coal or a lick of flame. What he stole was something far more ethereal, far more abstract, and far more potent. He thrust the tip of the fennel stalk into the very heart of the primordial flame, and he did not capture heat. He captured its essence, a single, invisible, incandescent spark of pure, divine consciousness, the fire of the mind, the logos, the seed of self, concealing the smoldering, thought-laden spark within the hollow stalk. He descended from the mountain, his heart pounding with the thrill of his righteous transgression. He walked among the tribes of men, who looked at him with the same placid, incurious, animal eyes as ever. He found a place where they had gathered, a small clan huddled together for warmth against the cool night air, and he performed his great, terrible act of charity. He broke open the fennel stalk, and he released the spark. It was not a physical fire that erupted. It was a psychic one. The spark, a concept made real, leaped from the stalk and into the nearest human, and then from that mind to the next, a beautiful and horrifying contagion of thought spreading through the tribe with impossible speed. And for the first time in the history of the world, a human being truly saw. A man looked at his own hand, not as a tool for gathering food, but as his hand, a part of him. He looked at the woman beside him and saw not just a mate, but her, a separate being with a life and a world and a mind as complex as his own suddenly was. He looked at the stars, and for the first time, he did not just see lights. He felt a sense of profound, breathtaking wonder, and a crushing sense of his own profound smallness. He looked at his past and felt the first, faint, unfamiliar sting of regret. He looked to the future and felt the first, thrilling, and utterly terrifying pang of anxiety. In that singular moment, true humanity was born, and in that same singular moment, its peace was shattered forever. The curse had been unleashed. The dream was over. The change was immediate, cataclysmic, and miraculous. The fire of consciousness, now ignited, spread across the globe like a wildfire of the soul. Humanity awoke from its long, dreamless, and peaceful slumber. This was the dawn of civilization, the glorious symphony of progress that Prometheus had so passionately envisioned. Humans no longer huddled in caves, waiting for the sun. They learned to build shelters, to shape wood and stone with purpose. They looked at a seed and understood the abstract concept of a future harvest, and so agriculture was born. They looked at the animals and learned to domesticate them, to use their strength, to form partnerships. They developed language, not just as a series of warning calls or mating cries, but as a tool to express complex, abstract, and often contradictory thoughts. They could now speak of yesterday and plan for tomorrow. They could tell stories, create art, sing songs of sorrow and joy. They looked upon the world and sought to understand it, to categorize it, to find the patterns within it, and so science and philosophy began. They looked to the heavens, and feeling their own new, profound sense of self, they began to worship the gods who they now perceived as greater, more powerful selves. Prometheus watched this great awakening, and his heart swelled with a pride that bordered on arrogance. He had done it. He had elevated them. He had given them the tools to become masters of their own world. He saw them creating intricate pottery, weaving complex cloth, forging hard metals. He saw them writing, counting, charting the stars. He saw them falling in love, not with the simple urge of instinct, but with the complex, beautiful, and excruciating machinery of the conscious heart. He believed he had been their savior. He believed he had won. But a fire does more than just provide light and warmth. It also burns, and it casts a long, dark, and inescapable shadow. For every beautiful invention, a terrible new emotion was born. With the concept of mine came the birth of greed and theft. With the ability to plan for the future came the crushing, ever-present weight of anxiety. With the memory of the past came the paralyzing poison of regret and the bitter sting of nostalgia for a peace they could no longer remember but somehow felt they had lost. Men who had once shared food freely now hoarded it, building fences and walls. Tribes that had lived side by side in peace now saw each other as rivals for land and resources, and so war, in its organized, ideological, and brutal form, was born. Deceit, which is impossible without complex thought and the ability to imagine a reality that is not real, became a new and powerful tool for social navigation. Hierarchies formed, with the strong and clever ruling over the weak. Shame, jealousy, envy, existential dread. This was the dark, unwritten B-side to the glorious album of consciousness. Humanity was no longer at peace. Their minds, once silent and serene, were now a constant, raging cacophony of desire, fear, ambition, and endless, unanswerable questions. Why are we here? What is our purpose? What happens when we die? They had been given the fire of the gods, and now they were being burned by it from the inside out. They had been cursed with the torment of knowing. On Olympus, Zeus watched the world of men with a heavy, sorrowful, and vindicated heart. His flock was no longer at peace. They were building, yes, but they were also destroying one another with a ferocity that appalled even the gods. They were creating art, but they were also creating ever more efficient weapons. The divine fire was consuming them, just as he had predicted. He knew he could not take the fire back. The spark, once lit, could not be extinguished. But perhaps the damage could be contained. Perhaps the curse could be balanced. He called upon Hephaestus, the smith god, and gave him a new, strange, and terrible task. "You will craft a new being," Zeus commanded, his voice heavy with grim purpose. "Shape her from the earth and water, but give her the face of an immortal goddess. Let every god and goddess on Olympus bestow a gift upon her, to make her the most beautiful, charming, and irresistibly curious creature imaginable." And so she was made. Hephaestus sculpted her perfect form. Aphrodite gave her breathtaking beauty and the power of overwhelming desire. Hermes gave her a cunning, deceptive mind and a silver, persuasive tongue. The Graces adorned her with jewels and fine robes. They named her Pandora, the all-gifted. The story we are told is that Pandora was a punishment, a beautiful evil sent to plague mankind as revenge for Prometheus's theft. But what if she was a desperate, last-ditch attempt at a cure? What if she was a terrible, necessary antidote? Zeus gave Pandora a final gift. It was a sealed jar, or in some tellings, a box intricately carved and heavy with an unseen weight. "Do not open this," he warned her, knowing full well that, by forbidding it, he was ensuring it would be done. "Take it with you to the world of men. It is a wedding gift for the one you will marry." He knew exactly who she would marry. He sent her to the one being in creation naive enough to accept a gift from the gods without question. Epimetheus, the gentle brother of Prometheus, the titan of afterthought. Prometheus, in his forethought, had warned his brother never to accept anything from Zeus. But Epimetheus, whose nature was to act first and think later, was utterly captivated by Pandora's divine beauty. He ignored his brother's warning, took her as his wife, and accepted the sealed jar into his home. And Pandora, gifted with a divine curiosity planted in her by the gods, could not resist the temptation. She had to know what was inside the jar. One day, when Epimetheus was away, she lifted the heavy lid. What flew out was not a swarm of evils, in the way we think of them, not demons or sprites or physical monsters. What was released, according to the secret lore, were the inevitable personified consequences of the fire of consciousness, given form. Sickness, for the body is a fragile thing, and the mind now understood its own fragility. Toil, for ambition requires endless, unsatisfying labor. Old age, for the mind that can perceive the passage of time must also perceive its own decay. And all the other miseries that are born from a mind that is acutely, painfully aware of its own suffering. These things were not sent to punish mankind. They were already there, festering in the human soul since the moment the spark was lit. The opening of the jar did not introduce them. It simply gave them a name and a form, externalizing the internal torment that Prometheus had unleashed. It was Zeus's way of saying to humanity, "This is the price of the fire. This is the shadow that the light creates. Now you must see it, know it, and live with it." Pandora, in her terror at what she had done, slammed the lid of the jar shut. But it was too late. Everything had escaped, all except for one thing, which fluttered weakly at the very bottom of the jar. It was Elpis, hope. The traditional interpretation sees this as a final, bittersweet act of mercy from the gods. In a world now filled with visible, tangible suffering, humanity was left with hope to help them endure it. But from the perspective of our unveiled truth, hope is not a comfort. It is the final, most insidious, and most brilliant component of the Promethean curse. What is hope, if not the belief in a better future? It is the engine of ambition. It is the fuel for dissatisfaction with the present. A creature living in the perfect, thoughtless present, like the early humans, has no need for hope. Hope is the thing that makes a suffering being continue to strive, to fight, to build, to dream, and therefore to continue to suffer. It is the promise of a satisfaction that will never truly arrive, a horizon that recedes as one approaches it. Without hope, a man suffering from sickness and toil might simply lie down and accept his fate, finding a grim, animal peace in nihilism. But with hope, he gets up, he fights, he builds a better house, he invents a new tool, he wages a war to secure a better future for his children. He continues to feed the fire, to engage with the curse of consciousness, to strive for an unattainable state of perfect contentment. Hope was not left in the jar by accident. It was the linchpin of the entire system. It ensures that humanity will never give up, and therefore will never be at peace. It is the cruelest part of the gift. And Epimetheus, the titan of afterthought, became the warden of this hope, forever looking back on the mistake of opening the jar, while forever being pushed forward by the one thing that remained trapped inside it. Zeus's wrath now turned to the one who had started it all. He would not allow Prometheus's grand defiance to go unpunished. The gods seized the Titan, They dragged him to the farthest edge of the world, to the desolate, windswept, and lifeless peaks of the Caucasus Mountains. And there they inflicted his legendary punishment. They chained him to a great rock with unbreakable, adamantine fetters, forged by Hephaestus himself. And each day, a giant eagle, a monstrous emissary of Zeus, would descend from the sky. It would land upon his chest, tear open his immortal flesh with its sharp talons, and devour his liver. The pain was absolute, an agony beyond mortal imagination. But because Prometheus was immortal, he could not die. The wound could not kill him, and each night, after the eagle had left, gorged on his essence, his liver would regenerate completely, making him whole again, ready for the torment to begin anew the next day with the rising of the sun. This was to be his fate for eternity. This punishment is often seen as simple, brutal revenge, a tyrant's fury unleashed upon a rebel. But in the context of our unveiled truth, it is a chilling, poetic, and deeply symbolic judgment. The liver, to the ancient Greeks, was not just an organ. It was considered the seat of the deepest emotions, of passion, of life itself. The eagle, the symbol of Zeus and the heavens, represents the inescapable consequences of Prometheus's action, returning day after day, as predictable as the sunrise. The punishment, then, is not just physical torture. It is a living, breathing metaphor. Prometheus is being forced, for all eternity, to endure the very nature of the curse he so pitted and then unleashed upon humanity. Each day, he is consumed by the gnawing torment of his own thoughts and actions, the eagle eating his emotions/liver. And each night, he is made whole again, his immortal regret and consciousness never fades, only to face the same unchanging, self-inflicted agony the next day. He is not just chained to a rock. He is chained to his own forethought. He, who could see the future, is now trapped in an endless, agonizing present, where he must forever watch the long, terrible consequences of his actions unfold across the world of men. He feels the pain of humanity's self-inflicted wounds as if they were his own. He is quarantined, a god so infected with a dangerous, compassionate idea that he had to be isolated from the rest of creation, left alone with his eternal, regenerating regret. For uncounted centuries, Prometheus endured his torment. And then, another hero entered the story. Heracles, the great son of Zeus, performing his own fated labors as penance for his own madness. On his journey, he came to the Caucasus Mountains and found the tortured Titan chained to the rock. Filled with a simple, heroic pity, Heracles did what heroes do. He acted. He drew his bow and shot the great eagle from the sky with a single perfect arrow, ending its daily torment. Then, with his immense, godlike strength, he shattered the unbreakable chains that bound Prometheus to the rock. Prometheus was free. In the traditional myth, this is a triumphant moment. The noble hero Heracles frees the suffering champion of humanity, and Zeus, seeing the glory and compassion of his own son, finally relents and allows Prometheus to rejoin the society of the gods. But in our unveiled narrative, this act is another profound, and perhaps even greater, tragedy. Heracles was a being of might and action, not of deep thought or philosophical understanding. He saw a being in pain and he ended the pain. He saw chains and he broke them. He did not and could not understand the complex cosmic reason for the punishment. He did not understand that he was not freeing a prisoner. He was breaking a necessary quarantine. By freeing Prometheus, Heracles symbolically unleashed the Titan's dangerous philosophy back into the world, now vindicated by the actions of the greatest hero. He validated the idea of defying the natural order, of mortals striving to be gods, of the eternal, restless, and ultimately destructive pursuit of more. He had not just freed a titan. He had ensured that the fire Prometheus had given humanity would never be questioned, that it would now burn brighter and hotter than ever before, with the full endorsement of a hero's might. He was a hero who, in an act of pure compassion, had condemned the world to an eternity of the very ambition and struggle that Prometheus had first unleashed. And so, we are left with the legacy of Prometheus's great and terrible gift. We live in it every day. The fire of consciousness, the spark of self-awareness, burns within every one of us. It has allowed us to build cities that scrape the sky, to write poetry that can break the heart, to create music that can soothe the soul. It has allowed us to understand the stars, to cure diseases, to connect with each other across vast distances in an instant. These are the wonders that Prometheus, in his pity, envisioned. But that same fire has also given us the means to destroy ourselves on a planetary scale. It has fueled our endless wars, our insatiable greed, our systemic destruction of the very world that sustains us. It fuels the quiet, personal torments of anxiety, the heavy burden of regret, the gnawing fear of our own mortality. We are all, in our own way, chained to a rock, with the eagle of our own self-awareness returning to us each and every morning when we wake. Was Prometheus a savior? Or was he the ultimate villain? A well-intentioned fool whose pity for our simple peace led him to curse us with a mind that could never know it again? The truth, as it so often is that he was both. He is the ultimate symbol of the human condition itself. A tragic, beautiful, and terrible paradox. He is the father of our greatest achievements and our deepest, most profound sorrows. He loved humanity too much to leave us in the blissful, ignorant peace of the animal kingdom, and in doing so, he damned us to the eternal, glorious, and agonizing struggle of being human. The fire he gave us was the fire of a restless mind, and it is a fire that will not be extinguished until it has consumed everything. The greatest gifts often carry the heaviest price, and the brightest flames cast the longest, darkest shadows. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of a primordial crime. If this unveiling of a classic myth has ignited your own thoughts, show your support by liking this video, subscribing to Mythos Unveiled, and hitting the notification bell so you never miss another journey into the heart of our oldest and most dangerous stories.